but I have never wanted to wanted a prediction to be more wrong because fuck Michigan.
I knew that was
now I needed to go take a shower because I picked Michigan. That's what he said.
He's filthy.
Oh, it's too funny.
45, 50, 45, 40, 35, 30. He's gonna go. Holy cow.
Big Red Junkies.
Day by day, he gets better and better. He gets better and better. Give it JPB. Oh, man, woman, and child, he just turned this stadium inside out.
We're debating an awesome national championship game.
Oh yeah. I think, in my opinion, that the two teams standing, obviously the only two unbeatens, those semifinal games.
Those were awesome games.
Oh my gosh!
How long has it been since we had really truly awesome semifinals games?
Yeah.
About a year.
Yep. Well, there was one good one last year.
Yeah, I didn't even
but
think
both.
it was that good. I thought it was kind of sloppy. That's why that. Are you talking about the TCU game?
I thought they were both good last year. I thought just like the Michigan-Alabama game was sloppy this year, was still a great game.
That's fair.
The committee nails it every year. Yeah, I still want to shit on them for what they did to Florida State, but they got the best 4 teams in there. We got 2 amazing games.
Yeah.
We got.
I wish we
great
would
one
have had
coming
at
on
least
Monday.
6 teams in the playoff this year.
Yeah, deserving this year.
Because I would love to see a rematch of Georgia-Michigan a year later. Like I really feel like that Georgia-Michigan team, or Georgia and Michigan this year, seemed to me to be the most physical teams left out there. But I don't know. They got out.
Yeah.
Georgia got out physical by Alabama. But I don't know how much of the Alabama and Georgia game was Georgia just needing to, like, that monkey on their back of not having lost in basically 3 years was really getting to them.
Well, they should have done it sooner.
Yeah.
Alabama got their loss out of the way early, and then they made it in the playoff.
It's true. Which I don't think they make it in the playoff without having the ability to beat an unbeaten Georgia.
Oh, agreed.
Oh, obviously, yeah.
Yeah.
If they played a one-loss Georgia team, I don't think that gets them into the playoff.
No.
You're saying all the things the same, but Georgia
No.
having a loss?
But Georgia already had a loss.
No, you're right.
Like maybe Georgia dropped that South Carolina game that they played around with in the first beginning half of the season.
Yeah.
If Georgia had come in and it was truly an SEC title game between 11-1 and 11-1,
They don't get in.
I think Georgia would get in. I don't think Alabama could get in with Texas having beat them already.
I don't think. The reason why Alabama got in is because Georgia was number 1.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's the way that I look at that.
Yeah. If they were sitting at 3 or 4, Alabama doesn't get in.
No.
They just don't get in. Georgia, I think the SEC would have gotten shut out.
Hard to imagine an SEC-less playoff.
It's hard to imagine, yeah.
And now we'll never get to see it, damn it.
No. Because there's no way there's not going to be one of them in the top 12.
Starting off the season next year, there should be 3 or 4 in the top 8.
Probably, yeah.
Probably. With Texas coming in. And,
Well, you see Texas coming in. I mean, Oklahoma's not going to be bad, but I also think there's been enough rotation at Oklahoma. And did you see they fired their DC today? They fired their defensive coordinator and linebackers coach.
Yeah, Oklahoma's in a weird place right now.
And they've lost every single starting offensive lineman to the portal. So I don't know what's going on in Oklahoma, but they're going to have a very different intro to the SEC next year than what Texas is.
I agree with you.
I think Texas is kind of like what we talked about with Washington and Oregon already kind of playing Big Ten football. I think Texas is already kind of playing SEC football.
Yeah. Well,
Oklahoma, I don't know if
their defense
they know
is
who
a
they
little
are.
bit suspect.
I agree. I mean, they had a great defensive line, but the rest of it's kind of
Yeah.
and they're losing that this year, right? I mean, Big Boy's obviously gone, but I don't know who else. I don't know who else is staying down
They
there for
reloaded,
Texas.
though. They've recruited really well the last 5 years. So
He's a great recruiter.
Yeah.
Art Briles is a great recruiter. He did that at Washington and at USC.
Oh yeah. Oh, you mean Sarkisian?
Or Sarkisian, yeah, Jesus.
Art Briles. He's still
Briles, man, he's
still in trouble. I think
Yeah.
he's coaching the high school.
Remember
team.
somebody tried to hire him last year off season? Tried to hire him as an OC, and then fans found out, and they were like, get fucked. No way.
Where's
it
this?
was like Florida. like Florida A&M or somebody tried to hire him as an offensive coordinator, and ESPN picked it up and went national, and everybody was like, fuck no, and he got fired like 2 days later.
But he's a high school coach now, I think.
I'm sure.
His son's a OC somewhere.
I think he's in the NFL, isn't he? I want to say he's with Atlanta.
I'm going to say I don't really care.
I'm going to look it up.
He's good.
Kendall Briles.
Yeah. He was at Central Florida. I do know that.
Kendall Briles.
I think he was at Central Florida under...
He's the offensive coordinator at TCU.
TCU. That makes sense.
All right. Yeah, that's wild. He was the OC and QB's coach at Arkansas for the last 2 years.
Yep.
Last 3 seasons. Excuse me. He was at Florida State as the OC in 19, Houston in 18, and Florida Atlantic in 17.
Florida Atlantic. That was, and he was at Florida school.
Prior to that, he was working under Dad's staff in Baylor.
Yep.
But as far as this national championship game goes, I'll just tell you right now, I think Michigan is a bowling ball that's not going to be stopped.
I agree with you.
The way that they dominated in the trenches against Alabama was something we really haven't seen.
Yeah, the one thing it really kind of stands out, and it has all year, and it did a little bit last year. You know, you talk about Georgia losing one game in, 2 years? One game?
Basically 3 years.
You know, Michigan lost one game in 2 years. So,
yeah.
You know, and I was, I think an overconfidence. It was just something that came out of left field, and the stars aligned, and
well, you know what it was. It was TCU knowing that they had their signs and changing their signs and deliberately using those signs to throw them off.
Well,
it's been talked about by TCU's head coach.
It could be. I think in my opinion, it happens more than people think.
No, I think sign stealing happens all the time.
Yeah.
I think you sign steal throughout a game for sure. I mean, you look at head coach at Oklahoma right now. What's his name?
Venables.
Yeah, Brett Venables. He was the DC under at Clemson for a
years.
Long time.
Yeah.
While Clemson was the most dominant defensive team in college football, or one of between them and Alabama for several years, and he was known as a phenomenal signal stealer, like known for it. But he was known for it in game. He wasn't sending dudes out to do reconnaissance. He wasn't he didn't have some psyop thing going on, trying to get dudes out there and go and do this. So that's the stuff at Michigan. I feel like it was overboard because it was it's kind of like in baseball. Like everybody knows that you try and pick up pitcher signs. Everybody and their mom knows you try and steal the catcher's signs to the pitcher. That's fine. Do it like everybody does it in the game. The moment Houston started putting together fucking weird shit in the outfield and banging on trash cans to send in signals from dudes that were, using weird binoculars and stuff out in the outfield, like the moment you start getting like that in depth with your cheating, that's when it's not gamesmanship anymore. That's cheating.
Like I said,
trying to rig the game.
I'm thinking it happens more often than you think.
You think the style of Michigan does?
Oh yeah. People going to games, looking at the signs. Yeah, that does. There was a few coaches that were openly saying, "Well, that who cares? That happens." Like Brian Kelly said that, and then all of a sudden, everybody got quiet when these sanctions started coming down or the investigation started going. They got quiet. Yeah. So I think if you're trying to work an advantage, it's not cheating unless you get caught.
So here's my question to you about the cheating, and then I'm going to kind of put the cheating away. Okay. Let's say Michigan wins.
Yeah.
Let's say Michigan wins the Natty, and then the NCAA completes their investigation and decides to vacate all the wins this year. Michigan has 2 tainted national championships in the last 90 years.
My take is did they win the game? They won. So in my mind, they're the champs.
That's kind of where I am.
Yeah, and it's not like it's happening now. It's not like they were. We're going to go look at Washington because
everybody's super hypersensitive to it now.
Yeah,
and I don't know if you noticed during the entire Texas game and the Pac-12 championship, Washington's signal callers, the 3 dudes that are sending everything in, they had dudes following them around behind them with these giant.
I saw that.
Yeah.
I'm like, those guys are going to have ginormous arms by the end of a football season.
They do that a lot in the NFL, though.
they do.
They do that. So that just gives you a mindset that
and that's what I think is so crazy about the difference between the NFL and college. And I love that they were actually using it in bowl games to try this out.
Oh yeah,
but the headset stuff,
I love it.
Why? Why have we not been allowing this in college?
I know, I love it.
It seems silly.
Yeah.
Just do it. You're going to eliminate a lot of the sign stealing and shit like that if you just let them talk to a quarterback or the captain on defense through their head.
Yeah. Well, going back to the game though, and why I think Michigan's going to win is the chemistry. It's like, it's the unity, it's the chemistry that they have. Do they have a great quarterback? Yeah, he's pretty good. He's not, Washington's quarterback good, but
you know who he is? He's Brian Greasy. Brian Greasy,
yeah,
good.
He's
a great game manager.
He's a game manager. He's Trent Dilfer
he's Jim Harbaugh.
He's Trent Dilfer of the Baltimore Ravens when they won the
there you go.
He just managed the game
and
let his key guys do the thing. But Blake Corum is a freak. Their defensive line is sick, and they have two cornerbacks that are just off the charts.
Yeah,
when you shut down Marvin Harrison Jr. in a game, you're good.
Yeah,
good.
Plain and simple.
Yep.
And they were doing a lot. It wasn't a lot of one-on-one man stuff to shut him down. They were running a lot of cool things with that defense.
Yep.
But it was a lot of NFL style stuff.
Yep.
They talked about that during, the announcers were talking about that during the Alabama game, was how he came, their defensive coordinator, his name slips my mind.
Mentor.
Yeah, he came from John Harbaugh's staff with the Ravens.
Yep.
And he was one of those dudes that basically the Harbaugh brothers shared some staff for that year following the COVID year where Jim's seat was real hot. And he said, hey, go down there, help my brother.
Yeah.
Get him his job back on track. And they did. And he was one of the guys that stuck around. The rest of the guys went back to the NFL.
Yeah. Yeah. You're absolutely right. And a couple guys transferred to other schools like Miami. I think their OC left, but they've got experience in their coaching staff. And, love him or hate him, Jim Harbaugh is such a great coach.
He's a great coach.
He's just a great coach. He's a great motivator. The guys will run through the wall for him. I don't know. I think the advantage there a little bit is that unity, the chemistry, and the coaching.
When you look at what they've been through this year, he started the season suspended.
Yeah.
And they had to adapt, and they had to go through that adversity. And then he ends the season suspended, and you've got to go through that adversity. And you lose your number one All-American guard or center. I can't remember who
Center.
it is. Center.
In the Ohio State game.
In the Ohio State game.
In the first half.
And you got to go and finish Ohio State and then play Alabama. Like, they've faced some serious adversity, but they're healthy enough. This team is, like you just said, they're super bonded.
Oh,
they're
yeah.
super together.
Yeah, it's just it's amazing. And they don't. In my opinion, like their wide receiver group, they're good, right? They're just solid. They're not.
They're all right.
They're not
There's
above
nothing
average. Yeah, they're not flashy. They have the typical Michigan tight ends that make plays. But I think the glue is McCarthy and Corum. That's just the glue, and their offensive line.
Yeah.
It's just that's the glue. And that they do what they do, and you just you got to figure a way to stop that.
Yeah.
And it's just and when I've seen them all year, it was just like it was almost a mundane offense that, the first possession they might go to get a first down, and then they go 3-and-out and punt. And then the next series they'll get like 4 first downs, and then they just wear on you over the time.
They're super old school Big Ten offense.
It reminded me of Nebraska, offenses back in the day where they just wore on you. And they just did what they did, and you had to stop it. And once you stop it, they did it again. And that's the way I don't know. It's impressive. And
avoiding the big mistakes is something that you've seen them do all season long. It wasn't something that they did in the Alabama game.
Oh my gosh, yes.
That's one of the things I thought was most impressive about that game was that they were able to overcome their.
Oh yeah.
You get lucky that you have a sliver of a cunt hair of a chew.
That's against a barely in Alabama team If they have those kind of mistakes against Washington, they're not going to be able to overcome them.
I agree with you.
They can't make those same kind of mistakes in this game. The thing that we're ignoring the most about Washington is how explosive they are on both sides of the ball.
Yeah.
They can go off on offense, and they can fuck you up on defense. And so as solid and as steady as Michigan is, Washington's the exact opposite. I think it makes for a really fun game.
It's going to be interesting to see. I've talked about Michigan having the best offensive line in college football all season long, and then Washington won the best offensive line award. And so, like, I test to me, Michigan, even with having their center out, I test to me, Michigan's offensive line they're built and look like an NFL offensive line.
They are.
And they play together like an NFL offensive line. Don't see that as much. I've heavily scrutinized and watched the Pac-12 championship game against Oregon and the Texas game. I don't see the same thing from Washington, but they've also got probably 2 top 3 round guys on their offensive line this year. But they also have a far more dynamic.
Yeah, their offense just looks completely different.
Yeah, they have a far more dynamic offense that is led by a dude who's, I think, Penix's 6th year.
6th year, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, so
COVID year, and he got a
I
injury.
think McCarthy's the same way, isn't he? And they've both played a shit ton.
McCarthy is actually a redshirt junior.
Okay, so
he actually honestly has an option to come back next year.
Wow. Okay. Well, both of these guys they've been very experienced. Penix came from, didn't he start at Indiana?
Yeah, played at Indiana for 4 years.
Okay.
And 2 of those years he got hurt.
I think Penix is one of those dudes that from basically mid-season on, I've actually talked about him as a guy that I'd like to see play for the Patriots. I think he has an amazing deep ball. He reminds me a lot of Russell Wilson a couple years ago, still playing in Seattle.
Pretty deep ball. He fits that ball into weird situations all the time.
His release is strange, isn't it? But he's a lefty.
Well, that's the thing. He's a lefty. Everything about what he does looks weird.
Yeah.
And I think it would be similar to when you saw Tua come into the league as a lefty, and it took him a year or so working with guys in order for them to gel with the way the ball comes out of his hand and the way that he's going to ask them to run routes.
Yeah,
I don't know.
The one thing I look at, though, is above and beyond anything, this is going to be the most physical team Washington's played.
Oh, far
Absolutely.
and away.
Oh, my God.
Far and away.
It's something they're not accustomed to. And I say the only thing they're accustomed to is I don't even know if they played Utah, maybe a Utah defense. I don't consider Oregon's defense that physical. They're going to become physical, I think, as time goes on, as they enter the Big Ten, and just by their coaching pedigree. But looking at some of the teams they played, I don't see the physicality. Like, you watch that Michigan-Alabama game. I mean, Milroe got sacked 5 times, and it was all like delayed blitzes. Blitzes coming from everywhere. Has he seen that? Has their offense seen that? That's
probably only playing against Oregon. Oregon's defense, I thought, was the best defense in the Pac-12 this year.
I agree.
Until the second time they played Washington, and it just did. Like, Washington looked like the more physical team. They did in that game. Not the first time they played, but in the second game, the first time was a shootout, and it was just like whoever has the ball last is going to win.
Right.
In the Pac-12 game, Washington manhandled them on both sides of the ball. And they looked like the more physical team. And it's funny that you brought that up as being a major thing for you, because Jed only sent this short little, basically, paragraph. He said, as for the upcoming national championship game, where Michigan is looking for their first national title since 1948, see what he did there, versus Washington, who is looking for their first natty since 91, just like how I think the 97 game would have gone, so he thought Nebraska would have been more physical there. I think Michigan is too physical for Washington. Washington is a physical team we saw versus Oregon twice, who is very physical, but Michigan is different. Very similar to what you just said.
Very different. Their
style is different, so I'm sadly picking Michigan to beat Washington, but I have never wanted to wanted a prediction to be more wrong, because fuck Michigan.
I knew that was
now coming. I needed to go take a shower because I picked Michigan. That's what he said.
He's filthy.
Oh, it's too funny.
He's filthy.
But the same thing you just said is I think the same thing. I don't think Washington has seen a team like Michigan, especially Michigan's defensive front that can get after them the way that they have. But then again, who has Michigan played that's as dynamic on offense with the quality offensive line that, I mean, Ohio State's probably the closest.
Yeah, I agree with you. But
Ohio State didn't have a dynamic quarterback. Also, Penix, everybody seemed to forget it. They talked about it in that Texas game too. Penix can run. He just doesn't because he doesn't have to.
he's got a bad knee. So when he got injured at Indiana, he tore his ACL twice.
Oh, shit.
So, yeah, but you're right. He did run a little bit in that Texas game because the opportunity was there. I really believe that it's going to look like the first half of that Alabama game where if they can shut down the run of Washington, which if that guy isn't 100%, they should be able to do, they're going to be blitzing from all directions. It's something he probably hasn't seen before. And they're going to test his mobility. That's my opinion.
I agree with you 100% there.
I'm happy to be the only person picking Washington, though. That's fine. Because that's what I'm picking.
I
think
put
Washington
my pick out there yet.
is... Oh, I thought you already said that you agreed that Michigan was going to win this game.
Oh, I didn't say I agreed that Michigan was going to win the game. I agree that they're going to get after Washington the same way. I'm not giving my pickup yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think DeBoer is a great coach.
Oh, yeah.
Especially from where he came from. But I think that I think the advantage is it's just experiences in different elements of the game and understanding different elements of the game at the highest level might be the determining factor here.
Yeah.
I just, you say it enough. I mean, Harbaugh, I don't know. I love him as a coach. I really do. I don't like Michigan because I'm a Notre Dame fan. But I love him as a coach. I always have.
I find it hard for myself when I'm looking at this because like most of the FPI predictors out there, the FPI indexes, have Michigan as the superiorly dominant team over Washington hardcore. But Washington has also overcome like everything that they faced.
Sure. Yeah.
So it's tough for me when I look at it. Like if you're looking at the majority of them, Washington's actually favored to lose this game by over 75% by most FPI predictors.
Wow.
That's fucking insane. Especially when you think about the fact that the line is only at like 4.5 in most places right now.
Yeah.
You look at it opened at 3.5, 4.5 right now, and it's only like Washington's a plus 160. You're getting no value on that for a team that's a 25% chance to win, essentially, by most power indexes.
Yeah, I think a lot of that comes to how competitive both semifinal games were. Like, they got the right four. The both teams are undefeated. They both had phenomenal, Washington beat Texas, Texas beat Alabama, Michigan beat it's just kind of that. In theory, on a money line, if you look at how competitive those games were and how kind of tied they are, there's really no difference when you talk about the the competitiveness and the comparative, like this team beat this team beat this team,
Yeah.
So
all I can say is I think that we're going to see a lot of sacks in this game. I don't think it's going to be that high scoring. They have the over-under set at 56.5. I think that's crazy.
I think it's right where it should be.
I think if it gets to 56.5, it hits the over. I think Washington wins.
Exactly.
Because if they get in a shootout, Washington has the more dynamic offense.
Oh yeah.
But I think it's going to be lower scoring. I think you're going to see something more along the lines of like a 21-17 type victory for Michigan. That being said, like if I'm picking with the points, I'm going to go Washington getting plus 4.5.
So who do you think wins the game?
I hate it, but I think Michigan wins the game.
Yeah, see? So
with the points, I'm taking Washington, but I think Michigan wins
Washington
the game.
wins it outright. I think Washington scores 30 points in this game.
Jesus.
Wow.
Washington scores 30, they win.
That's what I'm saying.
Is Utah playing or
what are you taking?
USC? I like Michigan, and I like Michigan big.
Michigan big?
Yeah, and big by
defensive score too, maybe?
No, but I think they're going to get a turnover deep in the territory. Winding
the right time.
Yeah, I when I say big, I say by the points, and I say by 7. 7 points is big. I think it's going to be 21-14.
I will say one thing we have to look out for in this game is wherever football happens, because coaches are great on both sides, offenses are great on both sides, defenses are good. It's going to be whoever fucks up. Is honestly what's
absolutely.
Oh yeah,
it is going to come down.
Turnovers is going to be big.
Yeah.
Turnovers is going to be big, and like you talked about in the Nebraska-Michigan preview, or Nebraska-Michigan review of 97, it might very well come down to special teams.
Right.
If Michigan goes out, you said it earlier in the show, if Michigan goes out and fucks off the way that they did against Alabama, they ain't getting away with that against Washington.
No, not if...
Because they'll fuck around and Washington will be up by 14 points.
Yeah, as the kids like to say, they're going to fuck around and find out.
But if they stay as solid as they were the rest of the year, they should win the game pretty okay. Because they are the better team.
I agree with you.
It's going to be fun.
It's going to be very fun. I'm looking forward to watching it. Matt's on Washington. The rest of us are all on Michigan. Fuck Michigan.
I'm actually rooting for Michigan. I want Harbaugh to do some stuff.
And this may be the most unbelievable night in Cornhusker football history.